Peace be unto you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I was meditating and I had a mystical vision. This is how I saw the vision basically. It was one of the grand sheikhs, Khadim, who came to me and gave me a little bit of a message. So I was inspired to make this video. The background to it is that I was contemplating over traditional tasawwuf versus modern Sufism in the West, because it cannot be a great secret to anyone that there's a little bit of a gap between the two. The traditional tasawwuf does not always recognize modern Sufism as the same teaching as themselves. And being that me, coming from the Fula people and from West Africa and grown up with a Sufi father of Tasawwuf, I am raised in the traditional way of Tasawwuf without even being practicing, and I've grown up in the West. Maybe there is potential for me to do some healing, some reconciliation. So hopefully this can contribute a little bit to healing and reconciliation between the two worlds. What I saw in the vision was that there are basically 4 dimensions, or you can understand it from 4 dimensions. There are 2 causes and 2 effects, you can say. So the first one is a misunderstanding of Allah. The second one is a misunderstanding of good character. That's also connected to misunderstanding of Allah. The third one is therefore a little bit of a twisted judgment or furqan, and that leads to the fourth one, which is a little bit of a deviant deen or dharma or lifestyle or religion. So again, misunderstanding of Allah, misunderstanding of good character leads to a judgment that is not optimal and leads to a deen or dharma that is a little bit off. And that is the reason maybe why many from the tradition don't see Western Sufi as, they are a part of us. They see that lifestyle and see that there's something off with it. It doesn't feel the same. It's not experienced in the same way. And this is the thing. So, and one of the major problems maybe why these 4 dimensions exist is because the thing is, it's one thing to understand Islam from a scholarly perspective and reading. There's another thing to have the wisdom of Islam. So knowledge and wisdom are not the same thing. I repeat, knowledge and wisdom are not the same thing. The wisdom is when you have seen how these laws and these teachings have been applied in real life. Throughout your life, you have seen how people have lived Quran, how they have lived ayats in the Quran, how they have lived hadith. So you understand the wisdom of it. Versus you study something and then you think this is how it should be applied, and then you try it, but then you apply it in a way that it is inconsistent with something else that is written in Quran and hadith. And this is sort of one of the issues. So getting back to the 4 dimensions. So the misunderstanding of Allah. How do we misunderstand Allah in the West? So we basically have a very Christian way of understanding God. We have a Christian way of understanding God, and that is not strange because the Christianity is the root at Western culture. Christianity is really at the root of Western culture. And how does our understanding of God in the West differ from understanding of Allah? And God and Allah, by the way, are not the same. The universe is like a big mathematical code. It's written in the Quran. We created everything according to a measure. So the universe is like a mathematical code. That's what numerology gets at. So if you change the code just a little bit, then it will be an error. If any one of you have ever programmed in C++ or Python or MATLAB or something like that, you will know that a code, you can write a very long code and it's enough that 1 comma is wrong or 1 space or dot is at the wrong place and the entire code is an error. In that same sense, if we have a little bit of a misunderstanding of Allah, our entire deen will be a little bit off. So we misunderstand Allah in the sense that Allah has 99 attributes. in the West, we take the attributes we like and we throw away the ones we don't. And that is a type of polytheistic understanding of God. I repeat, we take the attributes or names of Allah that we like and we throw away the ones we don't like. And therefore we have a polytheistic understanding of God. Usually the concept of God in the West is very much loving, wadud, beauty, Jamal, and mercy, Rahman. So we take these attributes, these warm attributes of God, and this is how we visualize God. And that is not different from in the ancient times where people made a statue of Freya or Aphrodite, which were Norse and Greek sort of feminine gods, the beautiful, the loving. The problem with this kind of understanding of God is that then when we see someone else who is very powerful or very truthful, we look at them and say, no, he's angry, he doesn't understand love, or no, he's too macho, he's too masculine. You see, we reject those aspects of God. So when we see someone very powerful, or someone very truthful, or someone very knowledgeable, Al-Alim, Al-Jalal, Al-Haq, we reject it. And we think it is not God. So and this is like someone worshipping Freya, more feminine type of beautiful God. Someone worshipping Thor. Thor is known as Thor. Have you seen the movie Thor? That's the Norse god Thor, a very powerful one with the hammer, a sort of a war type of God, like this. This is all Allah. Allah is powerful. Allah is king. Allah is loving. Allah is beautiful. Allah is merciful. But Allah is also the just. Allah is also the bringer of death. Al-Mumit. Yes, Allah is also a killer. Yeah. Death is a part of life. What happens when there comes a big wave that kills 100,000 people? Like a tsunami or a hurricane. Allah is Al-Mumit as well. He's the death bringer. Yes. Allah is truth. Allah is power. And in the Muslim world, we have traditionally seen Allah as all of these things together. Not just love and kindness and mercy, and then we reject truth and so on. So we need a more fuller understanding of what is Allah, and not a polytheistic understanding. And when I say polytheism, I mean you worship only like love, or you worship only power, nothing else but power. It's only power, or nothing else but knowledge, tehuti, or thought, the aspect of God of knowledge, only studying, being an intellectual. You reject love, you reject power, you only study knowledge. No, Allah is all of these aspects. And I think that maybe this is the way it was revealed to me. Our misunderstanding of Allah leads to the other three. Our misunderstanding of what is good character, our misunderstanding of or a judgment that is off, and the deen that is off. Because when we only recognize the mercy and the love of God, we also build a picture of ourselves, what is good character. Because in spiritual communities, usually in the West, which you have seen, it's in Sufism and also outside of Sufism, there's this, you should always be positive, only say good things, never talk about anything negative, just, love, kindness, goodness. No, this is not adab, because adab is speak haqq as well. Read the hadiths where it says, speak truth, even if it's painful. You have to be able to have an adab where you are kind and merciful. But there's a time for power, and there's a time for fighting. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ fought in the Battle of Badr. He fought in the Battle of Badr. He fought a defensive war. You think when you stand with the sword and are gonna fight, you're about love. No, there's the power and there's the deathbringer aspect of God in it. There are these aspects that has traditionally existed in the Muslim world, but we don't recognize them in the West. We only want to make it love and mercy. And therefore, we overemphasize people who have these traits, but we reject people who are truthful, or we reject people who are very knowing, alims. We reject people who are very powerful. Maybe someone is very, you can say, masculine, goes to the gym and, is powerful and works hard and, you should fight. This is also an aspect of God. Yes. Or someone with an old lineage, a type of royalty. This is the Al-Malik. Allah is all of these things. So we misunderstand what is good character. We tend to reject people who show attributes of God which we don't like about God or Allah, and we overemphasize certain attributes which fits more with the merciful, loving God. That leads to, obviously, a furqan that is a little bit off. When we judge, when our judgment, and I made videos on the furqan before because it's very important, our hearts don't judge right from wrong correctly. We think that something is right which is not, and we think that something is wrong which is not. You see, because our furqan, when we look then at those people who are very powerful, the furqan is off. We judge them. We become very judgmental. And being very judgmental itself is that's also a very Christian thing. And it comes from, it is not a Muslim thing to be very judgmental at other people. I repeat, it is not a part of the old Muslim world to be very judgmental on other people. Because we are all sinners. And this notion that we should be perfect, that is a Western notion that is rooted in Christianity, because the church has traditionally been very hard on people who make sins, and you judge people a lot. He's a sinner. It becomes like a collective judgment, because Christianity is a very judgmental religion in that sense. And therefore people are afraid to make mistakes, and they live in but we are imperfect, so they create a life for themselves that they are sort of perfect. But this is not the furqan of the Muslim world. We are all imperfect. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, Astaghfirullah 70 times a day. To be able to see yourself and to see your mistakes is to be humble. Because the trait that is loved by Allah and the trait of the Muslim is humbleness, humility. And a humble person is someone who sees himself and sees when he makes mistakes. A humble person is also someone who does not judge other people harshly because he recognizes the fault in himself. A humble person is someone who is honest, because humility is honest, is authentic, is to be yourself and love yourself and be kind to others. But honest about it. It's not about being hypocritical or like judgmental on other people. That is not what is humbleness. But it's rooted again in a misunderstanding of what is God. So we judge incorrectly, and the result of that is that we basically start doing practices then that are, the code is a little bit off. The practices are a little bit corrupt, and they start deviating, so that our practice is something that is other than tasawwuf, or the practice is other than Islam. It starts deviating because the code is like that. There's a Western saying actually, if you give Shaitan the little finger, he'll take your entire hand. This means that when you start a little bit introducing this misunderstanding of God, it's enough by just a little bit. The deen over time, it's gonna fall astray. It is. And this is what is meant by bid'ah. This is my understanding of bid'ah, a more esoteric understanding of bid'ah, is when you introduce these misunderstandings over time, it's gonna deviate so that the deen doesn't feel the same anymore. And this is what can happen. Then if a sheikh from the traditional world sees Western Sufis, he feels like, no, these people, they are astray. That is because we have a misunderstanding of God. We only take the aspects of God that we like, but we don't take the ones we don't like. And that gives us a misunderstanding of what is good character, and it also gives us a furqan, or a judgment that is not completely. We can't really see right and wrong, and we cannot judge what is the right thing to do in a certain situation. And when the furqan, becomes off, then our deen becomes off. Because deen, in my opinion, from a deeper perspective, comes from a Furqan. This is why the Quran is sometimes called the Furqan. Or it was said in the Quran that to Musa alayhi salam, or Moses, to Moses was given Furqan, meaning his heart was filled with this judgment, and then he can teach the deen to people. He can teach the Dharma when you can only teach the Dharma when you have Furqan. You cannot teach Dharma when you don't have Furqan. You need that judgment in your heart to be able to teach how to live. So these are the things. And so how can we cure this? How can we help ourselves and help people with this? And how can we create healing and reconciliation? I believe that it's very important to understand that there is a difference between knowledge and wisdom. It's a difference in having, say, converted to a deen or a religion and learning these things from scratch. One still has certain unconscious, deeply rooted concepts that come from maybe Christianity or another deen. It takes a little bit of time before Islam, the wisdom of Islam, is manifest in the person, because again, one has to know how these things are practiced and how they have traditionally been practiced in the Muslim world holistically, not just Prophet Muhammad said we should have good character. I should only be positive, never say anything negative. Yes, but Prophet Muhammad also says be truthful. So there is a part of good character and there's a part of being honest. You have to have good character in a way of being honest, for example. While being loving, while being merciful. One has to be able to be hard, very hard, but merciful and loving with the hardness. Because Allah is Al-Rahman, Al-Rahim, and every chapter starts with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So there's a hardness and a mercy at the same time, and this is why Hadith Qudsi says, my mercy prevails over my wrath. Meaning that God says He has wrath, but He has also mercy, and the mercy is greater. So there's a wrathful component and a merciful component. It's not only mercy. That's that. And also, if we get a broader understanding of Allah, even the more powerful traits such as Jalal, Haq, Malik, Mumit, or Adl, justice, power, royalty or leadership, kingship, death, truth, these aspects of God and other aspects of God, the full 99 aspects, we will have a deeper understanding of God, and we will have a more holistic understanding of the deen, and that way we will be able, I think, to create more reconciliation and be more traditional and keep the deen from not being corrupted by the Antichrist or Dajjal. Hopefully this video has been helpful. Assalamu alaikum.